Nobody planned on driving through the night. That was the thing. We had a plan. Leave Amarillo by 6, hit Santa Fe before 10, check into the motel, sleep like human beings. 4 of us, me, Danny, Kara, and Marcus, packed into Danny's old Chevy Tahoe with 2 bags of gas station chips and a playlist nobody could agree on. It was supposed to be simple. It was supposed to be a road trip. The highway had other ideas. The first hour was fine, normal. Headlights cutting through the flat Texas dark. The kind of sky you only get out west where there's nothing for miles to compete with the stars. Marcus was asleep in the back before we hit the state line. Kara had her feet up on the dash. Danny drove with one hand on the wheel like he always did, easy and relaxed. I was the one watching the road. I don't know why. I just was. And that's why I was the first one to see it. The billboard. Big white letters on a faded blue background. Desert King Motel, 14 miles, cold AC, hot coffee. A cartoon sun wearing sunglasses in the corner. The kind of sign you see 100 times on roads like this and never think about twice. I looked at it. Then I looked away. Then I looked back at the road ahead. 14 miles later, it was there again. Same sign, same cartoon sun, same chipped blue paint on the edges. Desert King Motel, 14 miles. Cold AC, hot coffee. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was a chain, lots of locations. They put up identical signs. That's a thing that happens. 14 miles after that, it was there again. "Hey," I said, "have we passed that motel sign before?" Danny glanced at it. "Which one?" "Desert King. The blue one." "Sure, probably. These places advertise for miles out." "3 times though?" He shrugged. "Roads are long." Kara lowered her phone and looked at me. She had this way of reading a room, or in this case a car, where she'd go very still before she said anything. She went still now. "I noticed the gas station too," she said quietly. Danny looked at her in the rear view. "What about it?" "We passed one about an hour ago. Blue canopy, broken pump on the left side. A pickup truck parked at the air machine." She paused. "We just passed it again." Nobody said anything for a second. "Same chain," Danny said, but he didn't sound as sure this time. "Danny." Kara turned in her seat to face him fully. The pickup truck had the same dent in the passenger door. Marcus woke up somewhere around the 3rd gas station. He didn't say anything at first, just sat up, rubbed his face, looked out the window at the dark field sliding by. Then he looked at the fuel gauge. "We haven't stopped for gas?" he said. "Not yet," Danny told him. Marcus leaned forward and tapped the gauge with his finger. "Danny, we left Amarillo with half a tank. That was 2 hours ago. Easy." The needle was sitting right at the halfway mark, exactly where it had been when we left. Danny tapped it himself. Then he tapped it harder like it was stuck. It didn't move. "Gauge is broken," he said. "It wasn't broken this morning," Marcus said. "Then it broke. Nobody pushed it further." But I watched Danny's jaw tighten in the green glow of the dashboard, and I knew he was doing the same math we all were. 2 hours of highway driving, half a tank. The needle hadn't dropped a single mark. I turned and looked out the window and didn't say anything. The billboard slid by again. Desert King Motel, 14 miles. Cold AC, hot coffee. It was Kara who looked in the mirror first. The Tahoe had one of those wide rear-view mirrors, the kind that shows the whole back seat. I saw her eyes go to it, casually at first, the way you glance at your reflection without meaning to. Then I saw her go still again, "Danny," she said, "look in the mirror. I'm driving. Look at the rear view mirror." He looked. I watched his face. He didn't say anything for 3 full seconds. Then he said, "That's just the light in here." "That's not the light," Kara said. I turned and looked at Marcus. Then I looked back at the mirror. Marcus was 24. He'd gotten a haircut 3 days before we left. Still fresh, still sharp at the edges. In the mirror, his hair was longer. Not dramatically, maybe an inch, maybe a little more. There were lines at the corners of his eyes that I was certain had not been there before. He looked like Marcus. But he looked like Marcus 5 years from now. I looked at myself in the visor mirror above the passenger seat. I wish I hadn't. I looked tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. The kind of tired that lives in your face after years of something. I looked like my older brother. I almost said so out loud. I almost laughed because what else do you do? But the laugh didn't come. I snapped the visor shut. "We need to get off this road," I said. The exit came up 20 minutes later. Or what looked like an exit. A ramp curving away to the right. A green sign overhead. County Road 7, unincorporated. No town name, no mileage. Danny took it without discussion. The ramp curved, and then we were back on the highway. Same road, same flat dark on either side, same dotted white lines sliding under the headlights. Nobody spoke. Danny tried the next exit, same thing. The ramp fed back in like a drain circling a plug hole. The third exit didn't have a sign at all, just a ramp that curved into darkness and then spat us back out, facing the same direction we'd always been going. Marcus had his phone out. No signal. We'd lost that about an hour in, which hadn't seemed important at the time. The GPS showed a blue dot, moving steadily along a road that stretched in both directions with no endpoints, no towns, nothing on either side. Just the road. Just us. Nobody slept after that. We stopped talking about what was happening and just watched. The billboard, the gas station, the billboard again. The gauge frozen at half. The miles clicking up on the odometer. The only thing still counting, still moving, still insisting the time was passing, while everything outside stayed exactly the same. Around what felt like the 5th hour, Danny pulled over onto the shoulder and put the car in park and pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. None of us told him not to. I looked in the visor mirror one more time. I made myself look. My hair was thinner, not gone, just thinner, the way it would be in another 10 years. The lines on my face were deeper. I looked like I hadn't slept in a very long time. Not one night, not a week. A long time. I closed the visor, put my hand on Danny's shoulder, didn't say anything because there was nothing to say. Outside, the billboard stood at the edge of the headlight glow. Desert King Motel, 14 miles, cold AC, hot coffee. The cartoon sun smiled at us with its little sunglasses. Danny lifted his head, pulled back onto the road. We drove. I still don't know how we got off. 1 minute we were on the highway, same as always. Then the road changed. Narrower, rougher. The kind of asphalt that belongs to a county road and not an interstate. There were trees, then a town, then a gas station with a different sign, different colors, a teenager behind the counter who looked at us like we were ghosts. Maybe we were. We didn't talk about our faces. We didn't look in mirrors for the rest of the trip. We didn't talk about the odometer, which showed we'd driven 412 miles since Amarillo. The drive should have been 217. I've looked at maps since then. I've traced every possible route. I've tried to find the billboard, the gas station with the broken pump, the exit signs with no names. Nothing. The road doesn't exist on any map I found. But sometimes, on long drives, when the highway stretches out ahead and the signs start looking familiar, I check the fuel gauge. And when it hasn't moved, I get off at the next exit. Any exit. Because the road doesn't care how long you've been on it. It just keeps you moving. And something out there is very patient. My wife set the GPS before we left the rest stop. That's the thing I keep coming back to. She said it. She typed in the address. Her mother's house in Asheville. Same address we'd driven to a dozen times. And the route came up clean. 4 hours. Mostly interstate. Home by midnight. We never made it to the interstate. The closure signs came up fast. Orange cones stretching across all 3 lanes. A trooper's cruiser parked sideways with its lights going. A guy in a reflective vest waving everyone off at exit 14. No explanation on the boards, just highway closed. Seek alternate route. It was 9:40 p.m. In the back seat, our daughter Lily was asleep with her mouth open and her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. She was 7. She could sleep through anything. Our son Joel was 11 and very much awake, headphones around his neck, watching the detour unfold with the specific irritation of a kid who'd been promised they'd be at grandma's before bedtime. It'll recalculate, my wife Dana said, watching the screen. It did. A new route blinked up, blue line curving off the exit and looping south through what looked like back roads before rejoining the interstate further down. 40 extra minutes. Annoying, but fine. I followed the arrow off the exit. The town lasted about 6 minutes. A gas station, a diner with half its sign burned out, a stretch of low houses with porch lights on. Then the road narrowed and the houses thinned, and then stopped, and we were in the trees, not like highway trees, the decorative kind they plant along medians. These were old, dense, the kind that close in overhead and eat the sky. My headlights pushed about 30 feet ahead, and the rest was just dark. How long on this road? I asked. Dana tilted the phone toward me. Looks like about 12 miles, and then we hit 26 south. 12 miles of this, fine. I slowed down a little and drove. The GPS said, continue straight. The first car was easy to miss. A sedan pulled off into the gravel shoulder, no lights on. I noticed it the way you notice parked cars, briefly without thinking. Somebody pulled over, checking their phone, waiting out the detour. Dana noticed the second one. That's a minivan, she said, looking out her window as we passed. Engine's running and I can see the exhaust. Probably pulled over to check the route. Nobody's in it. I looked in the rear view. She was right. The driver's seat was empty. The car was just sitting there, engine running. No one inside. Maybe they got out to stretch, I said. Dana didn't answer. The GPS said, continue straight. I missed the turn. There was a fork. Not well marked. Easy to blow past at night. And I went straight through it when I should have gone left. I saw it too late. Brake lights flashing in the dark. Sorry, I missed that. It'll recalculate. We both looked at the screen. The blue line didn't change. No spinning icon. No recalculating in that flat, patient voice. The arrow just pointed ahead. Continue straight. That's wrong, Dana said. We missed the turn. I know, it'll catch up. It didn't. I drove another half mile, waiting for it to reroute us back to the fork. and it never did. Just the same instruction. Calm and certain. Continue straight. Turn around, Dana said. I found a spot where the shoulder widened and did a 3-point turn. Got us facing back the way we came. The headlights lit up the road behind us, the same narrow strip of asphalt, cutting through the same wall of trees. The GPS said, continue straight, same direction. As if I hadn't turned at all. I looked at Dana. She looked at me. In the back seat, Joel had gone very quiet. I drove back toward the fork anyway. Ignored the GPS. Trusted my own memory of where the road had split. We'd only come about 1.5 miles. It should have taken 2 minutes. After 5 minutes, we hadn't reached it. I slowed down. The trees were identical on both sides. The road was identical ahead and behind. I could not find a single landmark. Not a driveway, not a mailbox, not a reflector post that I recognized from driving through a few minutes before. This isn't the same road, Joel said from the back seat, very quietly. It's the same road, I told him, but I didn't believe it. There were more cars now. I don't know when they started appearing more frequently, but when I started counting, I got to 7 within a single mile of road, all pulled over, all on the shoulder, different makes, different years, a pickup truck, a family SUV, something small and old I couldn't identify. 2 of them had their doors hanging open. One had its hazards going, orange light pulsing in the trees in a slow, steady rhythm. None of them had people in them. Where did they go? Joel asked. Nobody answered him. I stopped the car in the middle of the road and sat there with the engine running and looked at those hazard lights blinking in the dark. Dana had her hand pressed flat against the window. Lily was still asleep, somehow, through all of it, still asleep, with her rabbit and her small, perfect face and no idea what was happening. The GPS said, continue straight. You are close to your destination. I turned to look at the screen. Destination. It had never said destination. We were going to Dana's mother's house in Asheville. That was the destination. This forest road was not the destination. This forest road was not anything. You are close to your destination. That's not right, Dana said, her voice carefully flat. That's not what we put in. I reached over and killed the GPS. The screen went dark, and then, after about 3 seconds, it came back on. Continue straight. You are close to your destination. Joel grabbed my headrest. Dad, something standing in the trees. I looked where he was pointing. At first I saw nothing, just the dark between the trunks, the way shadows layer over each other and your eyes try to make shapes out of nothing. I was ready to tell him it was nothing. Then it moved. Not fast, just a shift. A long, slow lean, the way a tall thing moves when it adjusts its weight. It was standing back from the tree line, far enough that my headlights barely reached it. I couldn't make out a shape, not clearly, just the impression of something very large and very still and then less still. I put the car in drive. I drove forward because there was nowhere else to go. I want to tell you the road eventually ended, that we found a way out, a gas station, a trooper who waved us back to the highway. We did get out. I'm here, so we got out, but I can't tell you how. I can't trace it on a map because the road is not on any map I found. I can't explain why the trees just stopped at some point, and there was pavement again, real pavement, wide and lit, with reflector lines and an overpass, and a sign that said I-26 East, like the last 2 hours had simply not happened. I pulled over under that overpass and shook for about 5 minutes. Donna called 911, told them about the abandoned cars, the open doors, the hazards still blinking. The dispatcher asked for a location, and Dana read out the GPS coordinates, and there was a pause, and then the dispatcher said very carefully that those coordinates placed us in the middle of a reservoir. There is no forest road at those coordinates. There is no forest. Lily slept through the whole thing. When she woke up at her grandmother's house the next morning, she was happy and completely fine and asked for pancakes. I haven't told her what happened. She's 7. I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know what I'd even say. But I've thought about those cars. 7 of them at least. Engines warm. Doors open. People who pulled off the same highway, hit the same detour, followed the same blue line into those same trees. People who did not come back. I've thought about what the GPS said right before I shut it off. You are close to your destination, not their destination. It's whatever was in those trees wasn't lost. It knew exactly where it was going, and it had been fed before. I should have kept driving. That's what I tell myself now. You see a light at 3 a.m. on a road that shouldn't have anything on it for another 40 miles, and you should put your foot down and keep going. Simple, easy, the kind of decision that keeps you alive. But I was exhausted. 4 hours past exhausted, actually. The kind of tired where your eyes stop burning and go numb, where you catch yourself doing 10 miles without remembering any of them. My coffee had gone cold 2 hours back. The radio was just static and distant country music, and I'd stopped trying to find a signal around midnight. So when I saw the light, I slowed down. It was a diner, the old-fashioned kind. Low building, flat roof, windows running the full length of the front, so you could see the warm yellow glow spilling out onto the parking lot. A sign above the door, red neon buzzing faintly. Millie's. No tagline. No hours posted. Just the name and the light and the parking lot with 4 or 5 cars sitting in it like everything was completely normal at 3 a.m. on a road in the middle of nowhere. Tennessee. I pulled in, sat in my car for a second. Through the window I could see people inside. A waitress moving between tables. Customers sitting, eating, normal, mundane. The most normal thing in the world. I went in. The smell hit me before the door even closed behind me. I don't know how to describe it except to say it was the best thing I'd ever smelled. Not one thing specifically. Not bacon or coffee or pie. But all of it together. Layered in the warm air like the place had been cooking for 100 years. And every meal had left something behind. My stomach turned over hard. I hadn't eaten since noon. A waitress appeared from nowhere. She was young, early 20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back and a pale green uniform that looked like it was from a different decade. She smiled at me. Wide, warm, too wide, maybe. But I was tired. I wrote it off. "Just one?" she said. "Just me." She grabbed a laminated menu from the counter without looking and led me to a booth by the window. I slid in. The vinyl seat was warm, which was strange, given I was the first one sitting in it, but I was already looking at the menu and my brain was already narrowing down to the single urgent question of what I was going to eat. Everything looked incredible. Everything. I couldn't explain why. The menu was standard diner food, nothing special on paper. But reading each item felt like a small physical pull. Like my body wanted all of it simultaneously. I looked up to order. The waitress was already gone. looked around. The diner had maybe 8 tables, 5 of them occupied. A trucker type by the counter, big guy, flannel shirt, working through what looked like a full breakfast plate. A couple in the middle booth, older, not talking, just eating slowly and steadily. A woman alone near the back with a slice of pie and a cup of coffee, staring at the table. 2 men by the far window, suits, briefcases on the seat beside them, eating without looking at their food. Normal people, road-tired people. People stopping for the same reason I had, except nobody was talking. Not the couple who looked like they'd been married 40 years and probably never ran out of things to say. Not the 2 suits. Not even the waitress exchanging words with the trucker when she refilled his coffee. She smiled at him and he smiled back, and their mouths moved. But I couldn't hear anything, which was strange because the diner wasn't loud. There was no music. The fryer wasn't going. It was quiet enough that I should have heard a conversation 2 booths away just fine. I watched the trucker's face. He was smiling, not laughing, not reacting to anything, just smiling steadily while he chewed, the way a person smiles for a photograph. Held, fixed, like the expression had been placed there, and he hadn't thought to change it. I looked at the couple, both smiling, same smile, same steadiness. I put the menu down. The waitress came back with a glass of water I hadn't asked for and set it in front of me like she'd read my mind. "Ready to order, hun?" I looked at her smile. Up close, it was worse. Not cruel, not threatening, just too present. Like every muscle in her face was committed to it, and nothing else was happening behind her eyes. "Actually," I said, "I might just get coffee to go." "Of course," she said. She didn't move. "You sure you don't want something to eat? Kitchen's got everything going." "I'm sure, just coffee, to go." She smiled wider, which I would have said wasn't possible, and disappeared toward the counter. I looked back at the room. The woman with the pie hadn't moved. Same position, same cup raised slightly, same eyes on the table. I watched her for 15 seconds. She didn't blink. She didn't put the cup down. She didn't shift her weight or check her phone or do any of the 12 small unconscious things a person does when they're just sitting in a diner at 3 a.m. She just held that position and smiled at nothing. I stood up. I didn't wait for the coffee. I left a 5 on the table for the trouble and walked to the door and put my hand on it and pushed. A hand landed gently on my shoulder. "Sir?" The waitress, right behind me, which meant she'd crossed the room in almost no time at all. "You haven't paid yet." "I left something on the table. I didn't order anything anyway, so..." "You haven't paid," she said again. Same tone, same smile, like she hadn't heard me at all. I turned to face her. "I didn't order anything. I sat down. I asked for a coffee to go. I changed my mind. I don't owe anything." "Everyone pays at Millie's," she said. "It's how it works." Behind her, I noticed the room had gone still. Not quiet. It had already been quiet. Still. Every person in the diner had stopped moving. The trucker had his fork halfway to his mouth and wasn't completing the motion. The couple sat with their hands flat on the table. The 2 suits hadn't moved in what I now realize was a very long time. Only the waitress moved. Only she was still looking at me, still smiling, still with her hand resting on my shoulder like she wasn't applying any pressure at all. She didn't need to. "What's the payment?" I asked. Because I understood by then that she wasn't talking about money. She tilted her head, just slightly. The smile didn't change, but something behind it did. Something shifted that I felt more than saw, like a light, turning on in a room at the end of a long hallway. A memory, she said, one you won't miss. How do you know what I'll miss? We're very good at choosing. She said it simply, professionally, the way a doctor tells you about a procedure. It won't hurt. You'll drive away full and rested, and you'll have a lovely trip. You just won't remember one thing, something small. We're always very careful. The trucker lowered his fork, put it down on the plate. He was still smiling. What did he give? I asked. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Something small, she said again. They all give something small. I thought about that. A memory? One I won't miss, she said. Something small. I looked at the trucker's face, the fixed and pleasant emptiness of it, and I tried to figure out what small thing had been removed from behind his eyes. I couldn't tell. That was the worst part. I couldn't tell what was missing. He just looked like a man who was fine. A man who had eaten a good meal and was sitting quietly in a warm place. A man who had left something at the door on the way in and didn't know it was gone. I'd like to leave, I said. Without paying? The smile stayed exactly where it was. Nobody leaves without paying, hun. I don't remember the drive out of the parking lot. I know I got in my car, I know the engine started, I know the road was dark, and then there was the interstate on-ramp, and then I was doing 75 with the windows down and cold air hitting my face and my hands, white-knuckled on the wheel. I pulled over at the first rest stop I found and sat there until my breathing evened out. I wasn't hungry anymore. I noticed that. Whatever exhaustion I'd felt walking into that diner was gone. I felt rested, clear-headed, almost light in a way I couldn't account for. I tried to call my wife. It took me 3 attempts to remember her name. I knew it a second later. Of course I did. We'd been married 9 years, but for 3 full seconds, standing in that rest stop parking lot with my phone in my hand, her name was simply not there. A clean white space where something used to be. Something small, she'd said. We're always very careful. I've thought about those 3 seconds every day since. I've thought about what sits in that white space. I've thought about whether it's grown, whether careful means permanent or just slow. I haven't told my wife. How do you tell someone that? I haven't driven that road again. But sometimes, when I'm tired and it's late, and I see a light up ahead where there shouldn't be one, I feel it just faintly. The pull, the smell, and the terrible quiet thought that whatever they took, maybe I could afford to give a little more.